After Michael Corleone had conquered the criminal underworld, he was now undoubtedly the boss of all bosses. However, Michael's goal was to move away from that treacherous world and into the legitimate one. But the world of the Mafia was relentless, and he still needed to make sure it was kept at bay. Michael needed to achieve something unprecedented, something so monumental that could propel the family and certify its position as one of the wealthiest families in America. And this opportunity of the century would soon present itself, but by a man with a personal vendetta against Michael, who has dedicated the last couple of years waiting for the perfect opportunity to crush him. Without a doubt, the most cunning and Machiavellian individual in the world of The Godfather. This was, of course, Hyman Roth. His mastery of the game of power made him a deadly opponent, on par with the likes of Don Vito Corleone. Roth was a valuable asset to many mafia families. He was known and revered as a savvy investor and helped the families launder money and invest in very profitable ventures. But soon Roth's biggest enemy would be the son of his former mentor. He was mentored by the notorious Don Vito Corleone and Peter Clemenza. Hyman Roth was a close and early member of the Corleone Mafia empire. However, he would later move away from the Corleone family and build his own empire. What's most fascinating about this character is that he was based on a real-life notorious mobster, and many of the events did indeed happen in real life. In this video, we will analyze the meteoric rise of Hyman Roth and the reason behind his vehement hate towards Michael, and finally, how it all came crashing down. Born in December 1881, Hyman Sochowski spent his early life in Hell's Kitchen, New York. In the early 1920s, while working as a car mechanic, he was noticed by Peter Clemenza for his skills. Clemenza saw a lot of potential and also needed a mechanic at the time. After Clemenza made sure he was clean, he then introduced him to Vito Corleone. So how did he get the name Hyman Roth? Before he would officially join them, Clemenza hated Hyman's name and called him Johnny Lips. But fortunately, Vito had a better idea. Vito asked him who his biggest inspiration was, and Sochowski replied, Arnold Rothstein, who was an infamous racketeer at the time. And so, Vito gave him the name Hyman Roth, and he stuck with it ever since. Roth did work diligently for the Corleone family during Prohibition. He played a crucial role in its operations. Even though Don Vito and Roth had a decent relationship, it is suggested, however, that Vito never fully trusted Roth.
You respected him. Your father did business with Hyman Roth. Your father respected Hyman Roth, but your father never trusted Hyman Roth, or a Sicilian messenger boy Johnny Olaf.
Therefore, always keeping an eye on him in case of betrayal. As the Prohibition era slowly ended, Roth decided it was time to move away from the Corleone family and start building his own organization. This was roughly after a close friend of his sparked his interest in a business venture that was to transform a small desert stopover for GIs into what was soon to be known as Las Vegas.
He had an idea to build a city out of a desert stopover for GIs on the way to the West Coast. That kid's name was Mo Green, and the city he invented was Las Vegas.
A question many have asked is, what was Roth doing during the War of the Five Families and all the other events that took place at that time? By the time those events were unfolding, Roth, alongside Mo Green and the backing of a number of families, had pretty much established Las Vegas. It wasn't at its prime just yet, but many of the families had begun to notice its true value. Even Don Vito and Tom Hagen would discuss the prospect of investing quite heavily into the casino business. Along with his work with the Mafia families, which included everything from brokering deals to money laundering, he would help Green make his vision a reality. But Roth was also expanding his interests into Miami, but more importantly, establishing connections he would need to begin working on a revolutionary idea. Roth's organization was almost nothing like the other crime families. He had very few under his direct control, opting for a different strategy. Rather than opting for a more traditional structure, he was shrewd enough to make use of his partners, so they would provide him with all the muscle and protection he needed. This helped him remain under the radar of the authorities, allowing to continuously expand his power and influence.
Hyman Roth is the only one left, because he always made money for his partners.
His ability to generate such enormous profits for himself and his partners gave him immense influence and a sort of political invincibility in the underworld. Nearly all of Roth's allies and most bitter rivals realized he was far too valuable an asset to lose, and his partners were determined to protect their moneymaker at all costs, even if they distrusted or disliked him. And this was primarily because Roth had used Law 11 of the 48 Laws of Power. The law states, "To maintain your independence, you must always be needed and wanted. The more you are relied on, the more freedom you have. Make people depend on you for their happiness and prosperity, and you have nothing to fear." By the late 1950s, Roth was based in a very quiet neighborhood in Miami as a middle-class man with his wife Marcia, hiding the fact that he is a multi-millionaire and one of the most powerful and influential figures in the criminal underworld, with contacts in very high places. Although his health was slowly deteriorating and an already long-established legacy and career, he was not done just yet. He began working on one of the most ambitious ventures in the history of organized crime: revenge. When Michael had ascended to power, he had taken out all his enemies, all those who challenged and doubted him, all in one move. And as you know, one of these individuals was Moe Greene. And as we talked about earlier, he was Hyman Roth's close business partner and longtime friend and ally. And so, regardless of how much Roth tries to deny it, he took it very personally. Although Roth made the smart move of not reacting immediately, he still held this vendetta against Michael and the Corleone family. And like the cunning strategist that he was, he waited for the right opportunity to strike. When Michael began to expand and move the family's business operations into Las Vegas, Roth saw this as an opportunity to begin scheming the downfall of the Corleone family. Before we get into the Havana deal, there's something that very few people know about. A hidden detail, something in the movie itself that completely goes over most people's heads. And no, it has nothing to do with Fredo. The first real official contact or business deal between the Corleone family and Roth's syndicate was Michael's acquisition of the Tropicana Hotel and Casino after he had taken over the role of Don. This was the hotel that Moe Greene had managed and co-owned by Roth and the Lakeville Road Group, also known as the Forlenza crime family. But after Moe Greene was taken out, Meyer Klingman, who held a piece of the business, was given the task of running the day-to-day operations. If you remember, when Michael met with Greene years earlier, he had offered to buy him out, and he was serious.
Casino, the hotel. Corleone family wants to buy you out.
It was not necessarily just an insult or a way to call him out. Michael was interested in purchasing the business and adding it to the Corleone family empire. So Michael had an interest in this business from quite early on. So after Michael had made his move into Nevada in an attempt to push the family closer to legitimacy, he saw it was finally time to take over that business. So he approached Roth to get his approval to move Klingman out and probably buy out the share held by Roth and the Forlenza crime family.
But I've been instructed to tell you that if you move Klingman out, our friend in Miami will go along.
That's very kind of him. You tell him. That's greatly appreciated.
It was a show of good faith, so he could lure out Michael and gain his trust for what would be his destruction. So as you can probably tell, this made things even more personal for Roth and infuriated him even more. And in his mind, taking out his partner was not bad enough. Michael was trying to take over his empire. Now, the Cuban deal turned out to be more complex and interesting than what we initially thought, and so we have the entire video breaking it down, which you should look into after this video. But for now, here's what you need to know. Roth and his associates were going to build and purchase a series of hotels and casinos in Havana, Cuba. It was a $100 million deal, which for context, that's around $1.1 billion today. The genius of this deal was that they were not going to put up all of the money themselves, and they were still going to have the controlling interest. You'll find out more after watching that video. But what's important is that this piqued Michael's interest, as it perfectly aligned with his grand vision of the Corleone family. In fact, Roth was going to give away most of his assets and interests in the deal to Michael at the time of his retirement or death.
I turn over all my interest in the Havana operation to his control.
If Michael agreed to become an investor. And so this was the smokescreen Roth would use to hide his real intentions, luring Michael into a trap. At the same time, he was working on infiltrating the Corleone family, triggering its destruction from within, causing dissent and eventually treason. The fall of Hyman Roth. So by now you understand the level of strategic prowess Roth possessed. He was definitely someone on par with the likes of Don Vito Corleone. He understood human nature and could read people like a book, and had managed to outlive many of his contemporaries. So why did he fail in the end? Why couldn't he finish Michael once and for all? Overall, he was just as powerful as Michael, and his experience and connections allowed him to be on the same level as Michael. So what happened? Roth saw Michael as a spoiled brat who was put in this position without proving himself. Who was he to dare to take out the heads of 5 other families? Even though Roth understood the game and played it effectively for years, he allowed his need for revenge to blind him. He even tried to convince Michael and himself that he understood that it was only business, not personal.
I let it go. And I said to myself, this is the business we've chosen. I didn't ask who gave the order, because it had nothing to do with business.
But he didn't truly see it that way and became too obsessed with crushing the Corleone empire that he dragged it on for too long, while he should have finished it as soon as possible. His ego blinded from what was happening, and so when Michael realized what Roth was thinking, he played along and used this to his advantage, helping him to recover his position, and even came out as the one victorious. The business dealings between the Mafia and the Cuban government are in fact 100% real and fairly well documented. It involved the real-life counterparts of the characters in the film, everyone from Meyer Lansky, Lucky Luciano, Bugsy Siegel, Frank Costello, and Vito Genovese, just to name a few. In fact, the real-life events might even be crazier than the ones in the film, with the story not ending at New Year's Eve, and soon involve a range of other powerful individuals and entities. Stay tuned for a video that will break it down. It's undeniable that Don Vito and Michael are symbols of those who mastered the game of power. But something we all need to realize is that we are already in the game. Yes, you too are a player in the game of power, whether you like it or not. It is a fact. And so, understanding the laws of the game is the only way you can win. But what can separate you is the way that you use them. You don't need to use the laws in your everyday life to feel their impact. You just need to understand them. Becoming aware that this is indeed how some people think, and it doesn't matter where you are in your life or what career path you choose. If you are in a sort of competitive field, and especially if you're looking to reach the top, you need to truly understand these laws and have them in your arsenal, which then allows you to identify when they're being used against you and have the know-how to counter them. We have a series that breaks down these laws and, more importantly, provides you the proper way to use them in your life. Translate these laws into practical and, more importantly, ethical steps you can start implementing. Click here to get started. Once again, thank you for watching, and make sure you are part of the Culture Mafia.